in the year 2022, the year that is going to see, I think, a massive electoral spanking for the Democrat Party, and it couldn't happen to a nicer party, and all of its corrupt and um, uh, really failed elected officials, and failed even though that was their intention for these policies to happen. And with me here tonight on the captive audience is Mr. David Darnell. David, good to see you. It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday, and I'm happy that the Crypt Keeper, Portland's own Crypt Keeper, current but soon to be former, I'm sure, Portland City Council, Joanne Hardesty, polling so terribly bad.
Yeah, she
couldn't happen to a nicer person. I understand that she failed, or perhaps purposely, did not get her photo in the voters pamphlet, which I noted was probably a net positive for her. She's a little scary looking.
She is a bit scary looking, yeah.
I'm sure she scares young children.
She does. When you look like a character from Tales from the Crypt or something, and it's like maybe people are better off just imagining you from a silhouette.
Yeah. It scares little children and dogs.
Hide the kids. Well, yeah. So I'm going to post that little story here because that's a fabulous little story. She is in Portland. This is Portland voting, folks. Joanne Hardesty is at 26%. Her opponent, Rene Gonzalez, who's a very reasonable businessman who wants to have fully staffed public safety that is allowed to do its job, is at 50%. There are 24% undecided, and that 24% is not going to all go to Joanne Hardesty, which means this one's over. But you got to vote. You can't. Polls don't vote. People vote, and or I should say, ballots vote. If you're looking at it from the perspective of Democrats, ballots vote. So you got to get your ballot in, and you got to tell people about this. But this is a great opportunity to deliver a massive, massive message. There are people who are going to vote for her, and there are people who are going to vote for Tina Kotek. But what I found most interesting in the recent spate of articles was the results of a poll done by the Oregonian that actually found that Tina Kotek, that her supporters, she's the Democrat nominee for governor, for those of you who are unfamiliar. And you won't get that familiar with her, I think, if we're fortunate, because she can go back to doing whatever Democrats do when they aren't ruining your life by being in the government. That 57% of Kotek backers said Oregon is on the right track.
Wow.
22% said they didn't know if it was headed in the right or wrong way. I mean, seriously. And they actually, this article I just posted from the Catalyst gives 3 reasons why. One, Kotek voters are sheltered from her bad policies. That tends to skew towards higher income voters. Says 65% of the voters who make over $500,000 or more live in mostly Democrat neighborhoods, while 74% of those making under $100,000 live in heavily Republican neighborhoods. The neighborhoods of the rich. Rich Republicans are actually making well under the Democrat amount. And they mentioned in this article about Joanne Hardesty's 25% support. People have absolutely had it with this. And even rich white liberals are starting to abandon either the policies or they're just leaving. And liberal value, reason number 2, liberals value political utopia over political reality. And if you're in Portland, you cannot ignore the reality anymore. Utopia ain't going to cut it. It's just too awful.
Portland is a shining example of Tina Kotek and Tina Kotek type policies. And what surprises me I would have to presume that if 57% of likely Kotek voters see Oregon heading in the right direction, there must be some Kotek voters who see it heading in the wrong direction. And what on earth makes them think that the person who has brought us all of these policies for the last 10 years is somehow going to steer us in the right direction?
It
I don't.
is a mystery, and it's the kind of mystery that defies logic, because uh, there are people who know it's going badly and they're fine with it. Um, yeah, that one I don't even know if I can figure that one out. But here's the third reason. So in addition to the utopia over reality thing, um, the liberal voters live in a media bubble. They see and hear things so selectively that they don't actually know that people are this upset with what's going on out there. You've seen in Washington, D.C., President Brandon and Vice President Giggles, um, they actually, and their spokespeople constantly state that everything's fine, inflation's under control, stop complaining, gas prices are great. And they actually complain that entities like Fox News or Newsmax, that they are just spreading disinformation. So when they go to a gas pump and they talk to a person who just paid, $110 to fill their vehicle, and at the beginning of the Brandon administration they paid under 50, and they're like, that person, they're spreading misinformation about what they actually just paid for gasoline. You're living in a media
Yes.
bubble if you don't even know these things are happening.
Yes, people who are paying over $100 for a tank of gas are spreading misinformation. and those people are better off being removed from avenues like social media where they can share that kind of stuff. You can't have a good and decent society with people running around giving false information about what they actually paid at the pump.
Yeah, and they talk about in this article here, I know that they have been trying to play wordsmithing to claim that we're not in a recession by a definition that they themselves insisted upon 13 years ago, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And now that we're in one, they're literally contradicting themselves sometimes. Within a short period of time, his President Brandon's own staff trying to redefine their way out of a recession. You know who knows we're in a recession? Citizens.
People at the pump, people at the grocery store, the people like me that actually believe their lying eyes.
Yes. And so this undergirds a lot here, but I think let's go on to the next story, because this one's kind of interesting too. There's a poll called the Nelson, Salem-based Nelson Research did a poll of 620 likely voters, and it says 33.4% would most likely vote for Christine Drazan, 31.5% for Tina Kotek, 19.2% for non-affiliated candidate Betsy Johnson, margin of error 3.9%, and then of course there's a smattering of undecided. The article goes to great trouble here to say that it's a statistical tie, and fine, you can say that, except nearly every poll that I've seen has shown almost the exact same thing. In fact, this one showed a slight increase in the margin between Drazan and Kotek. And every single one of these polls that I've seen so far, except for the one Betsy Johnson did in her own campaign, hint, hint, has showed Betsy Johnson in a completely unwinnable position, under 20%, 18%, no matter what.
She's double digits away from anything that even smells like the victory zone. And she's not going to make that up. That's why when people like the former Oregon Republican Party chair, Herman Bartschiger, come out publicly and say that he has information and his modeling shows that she can win and she's the only way to beat Kotek, that's dangerous, because that's not true. There's no math in the world, political math in the world, that will put Betsy in the winner circle. It's just not going to happen. Betsy's got to know that. Kotek knows that. Drazan knows it. I know it. You know it. Everybody that I know that's a political consultant knows it. But some people are still, trying to say that she's the only way out, and I don't get that. I mean, that's misleading information.
It is. That's misinformation. I mean, Bear Sugar's modeling has more in common with what happens on runways in Paris at fashion shows.
Yeah.
With like statistical data.
Yeah.
It's
And
just,
I've seen some modeling that put NAV turnout at 65% or above, which is also, I mean, that's misleading. And we know that NAVs break, Democrat and Republican as well. We know that NAVs in Democrat districts break D, and those in our districts break R. There's no NAV identity. The NAVs aren't as a whole saying, "Oh my God, we finally have a candidate," because it's not a party. I mean, it's just and it's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, is that the poll, Kevin, that also showed head to head without Betsy? Because I saw one that asked the question, if Betsy were not in the race, what would it be? And Drazen was +6 on that one.
I had not seen that one. I did see an article that was mentioned in the Daily Kos, which is a Democrat. What do you call it? Like it's like the what is it, the Huffington Post? It's very similar to that. It's a blog that Democrats pay close attention to, and this one said new poll finds Oregon independent harming Democrat in tight race. Which is kind of like they're whining about this. This might actually be what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it does say it shows the same numbers we just talked about, and then I guess the only way they could have gotten the number that you just talked about is that they were able to show that how much Betsy Johnson was taking from Tina Kotek. But I think that's actually a great service. We'll take it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the opportunity with having Betsy run. So a friend of mine said that if Betsy does in fact poach as many D votes as we believe that she may, for those people that can't stand Kotek, is Kotek's not likable. She's a little bit like Skinner. She's just not likable.
So Skinner. Yeah.
Yeah. So if she poaches as many as we think she's going to do, and ushers in a Drazen win, we'll be building statues of Betsy Johnson. And let's hope that's her. Let's hope that's her end game is to pull out. Kill Kotek's chances, because I can't imagine Betsy Johnson likes Kotek. I don't know anybody in the building that likes Kotek.
I don't think they like her. I think that when she was in power, many were afraid of her.
It's mean as hell. Why?
I mean, she was kind of a brass knuckles, especially behind closed doors.
Yeah, real brass knuckles. So let's hope that's her plan. Of course, people like Bear Sugar are not helping. I mean, that's not part of the plan, Herman. It's not part of the plan to be peeling, to be lying to Republican voters, telling them that Betsy's the only chance we have to beat Kotek, because that's just not so.
Yeah, it's not math either, which is great. And speaking of math, this is really great. I enjoyed the heck out of this when I saw it. It's something that's been put out by the Republican Governors Association, which is very involved in supporting Christine Drazen in this race. That hasn't always been the case here in Oregon with every gubernatorial race, but it is in this one. And a fantastic Twitter post here shows a series of different what do you call them? Twins, famous twins, and these famous twins, which we've all seen on TV, movies, music, and then it ends with and shows Tina Kotek and Betsy Johnson, and it states bluntly that Betsy Johnson voted with Tina Kotek 94% of the time, and that's so 0.4 times Tina Kotek equals Betsy Johnson. Like it's just it's and
it is math. Thing. It is math. I've heard some people on our team, or supposedly on our team, say they can't vote for Drazen because she has such a terrible voting record. And I'm thinking, if you're just voting, if you're casting your vote for the candidate with the best voting record, I guarantee you Drazen's is the best.
Yeah. Yeah, and with all the, there's been a lot of votes where you got a consistent and alternate set of policies from Republicans, and instead you had time and again Democrats all stick together and basically put in place the policies that gave us what we've got now. So when they say, well, Betsy doesn't have anything to do with what's happening now in the state, she voted against this stuff. And I'm like, well, actually, she voted for 94% of it.
She did. Yeah. And if you're of the natural resource industry and you're all smitten with Betsy because she opposed cap and trade, well, I guarantee you the timber companies are paying a hell of a lot more in CAT or corporate activity tax than they would like. And Betsy supported that and voted for it. I have to pay it, I think my company, well, in 2020, I think it was almost 50 grand, $50,000 for nothing.
Yeah, and it's driven businesses out of the state. It started doing it right away, and it was supposed to fund the Student Success Act. And as we saw last week, according to their own numbers, the Student Success Act is really the Student Failure Act.
You can't make this stuff up, Kevin. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. Yeah.
It's the Massive Failure Act, actually.
I'm not sure there would be any difference if the public schools just closed. That's how bad they are.
It's first of all, they did close them. Second of all, they didn't want to open them. And then when they did open them, they didn't want to fix what they screwed up while they were closed. And it wasn't good before they closed.
Well, just having no standards, there's just no standards. And so, there's no litmus test for having a 12-year education anymore. So what's the point? It's a jobs program for teachers and administrators. That's all it is.
Yeah. Who are allowed to teach to such a low standard now. That it doesn't matter if kids can read or write at grade level or do math, which used to be the point. But I guess teaching wokeness and gender identity is way more important, and they're nailing that. I got to give them credit for that.
Yeah.
And climate action, everybody knows, right?
Well, yeah, they're teaching. Yeah, they're trying to teach the children to be activists. Is what they're trying to teach. I think if a student shows some skill set in activism and is undecided as to which bathroom to use upon exiting high school, I think they believe they have done their job.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, so. It turns out that as housing prices go into the stratosphere here in Oregon, apparently the media and now some of the candidates are taking interest in talking about it. They are asking each of the questions, each of the candidates what they have to say about the increase in housing prices. And Tina Kotek goes back and tells a story about the Oregon Food Bank. That she hears that people all over the state are struggling, and many of them are working multiple jobs and still need help to feed their families. And now with the rising prices for gas, groceries, and prescription drugs, which they made go higher, they made gas go higher. That wasn't a bug. That was a feature of their policy. And now groceries, and of course homes. They're finally starting to talk about inflation, some of these candidates, and it's bizarre because it all comes back to how the government is going to go and write checks to you and raise the minimum wage and then put price controls in place, such as for healthcare. How they delayed evictions and for rental, and they think that this is how you solve inflation: writing checks, putting in price controls, um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, going around and telling people that that they're going to just order your wages to be increased, and that explain to me, how does that make inflation go down?
Well, there's nobody. I think in Salem has an economics education. No one who's in the supermajority, anyhow, because it doesn't make any sense. Housing in Oregon. Housing should be the way it used to be in Oregon. People moved to Oregon in the last couple decades, or 3 decades, or 4 decades. It was less expensive, and where people were moving from California, maybe New York, but Oregon has a very unique problem in so much as it's the only state in the union that has centralized statewide land use laws, and there's just it's
You're not allowed to build, basically.
Oregon. If I were to build 20 houses, 1,400 square foot them on the market, and I were able to price them down, where people would buy them, they would all sell because there's no place to live. But the problem is there's no land to build them on, because of the, what's it called now? That used to be the LCDC. It's called the DCLD, I think now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that statewide land use is choking out development in Oregon. It's.
Yeah, and I think that they have been doing that to industry that would want to locate here too. And so people like Intel said, well, you didn't even return our phone calls, and we just wanted a little bit more land so that we could expand chip production here. We're going to Ohio, where they actually care. Now, it turns out, and Christine Drazen responded to this and said, our state's tax burden and regulatory environment has led to one of the highest costs of living in the country. Oregon ranks 7th out of 50 states in cost of living in the United States. So you're not imagining it. That's not misinformation.
No.
And
gas taxes haven't helped anyone. What was that? A couple of years ago, Democrats, supermajority, passed gas tax is going to be phased in over time. All in an effort to, of course, get us out of internal combustion engines, or cars as we know them.
Yeah, that was an attempt to punish you for utilizing your vehicle, or wanting to buy a home in other cases, or wanting to run a business at a profit. You're being punished for all those things.
Yes.
Because the Democrats don't like those things.
Hell, you're punished in Oregon even if you don't run a business at a profit.
That's right.
The corporate activity tax is on your gross sales. You can lose money and still pay $100,000 or $1 million.
Because when you're making all this money and you don't get to keep it because it goes all to the cost of running the business,
right?
Then apparently you're somehow rich. I guess that's the definition of rich. Well, you just hinted at something, though. Yes, they want to punish you for driving gas-powered cars, and guess what they're going to do now? They're actually starting hearings right now. Right now, even though it's for 2030, they plan to ban gas-powered cars, and they're doing hearings now. They're serious about it. So hearings so that they can join California and New York in banning the sale of gas-powered cars by 2035. But they never wait until then. Once they hold the hearings, and if they have enough power to do it, they start making it impossible for many of you out there to own or operate a car. And they're going to force you into technologies that are too expensive and aren't ready and aren't supported well enough by the infrastructure before they are.
No, and at the very same time that they're doing that nudge into technology where there is no infrastructure, they're dismantling the very infrastructure that would be needed. We're taking taking production, electric production offline. in the state of Oregon, trying to get rid of dams and all this other stuff. And it just, it's a fast track. It's a fast track back to the Stone Age. That's where they're taking us. Once you ban electric cars or ban internal combustion gas cars, once you ban gas cars and once you get people out of gas cars and once you get them into electric cars for which there is no infrastructure, like you say, we will effectively be looking for donkeys. That's what we're looking at here. Internal combustion engines, fuel industry, petroleum products, fuel industry. And we will be, we're going to be looking for oxen, for farmers.
And you're going to be cutting down trees to stay warm, like they're doing in Germany now.
Yeah, we'll be defoliating the forest. Yeah.
That's right. They're literally, you and I both got the same reports. They're cutting down trees that are green, that can't be burned.
Thinking they're going to burn them this season. I've been looking into firewood exports. As a matter of fact, there's plenty of firewood in Oregon. As a matter of fact, we have a bunch of wood that has burnt in Oregon, kind of pre firewood, you might call it, and it still makes great fuel.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, So there's another part to this story that we know why this gubernatorial election matters. Why, if you want to stop and reverse these idiotic policies, where the people that are in charge of promulgating these policies they'll say anything to get reelected, but some of them are even defending this stuff right now, which is just a jaw dropper. Like, how could you defend all of these being the 7th most expensive state in the country, and you want to make it more expensive? But here's another part of the game. We have a justice system that, to put it mildly, has been imperiled, and frankly isn't much of a justice system anymore. It's sort of a political spoils system. And there's a game they play with judges in this state. And it was announced today by Kate Brown that there's somebody who's just retired, actually. From the state Supreme Court, his name is Thomas Balmer. He's retiring after 21 years. I don't blame him for retiring, but here's the game. He retired now so that guess who gets to appoint his incumbent replacement
right
on the ballot this fall.
Yeah, it's a scam. It's a scam. Voters should be able to vote for their judges. And as far as I'm concerned, I think law enforcement leaders should be voted on as well. I mean, we have county sheriffs. A lot of big cities, they have a police commissioner, and that person's voted in. I think when you vote someone in, when someone is elected by the people in a position of authority or power, particularly within the justice system, I think they have an accountability that you don't have any other way. And so the scam in Oregon is when it looks like there might be a change of guard. The judges retire. A new leftist judge with poor judgment often is installed in that position or appointed to that position. And then when they run for office, they run usually unopposed because lawyers are part of a brotherhood, I guess, and they don't want to. They don't want to look like they're inciting any lawyer violence by challenging someone in an election. And the power of incumbency, they either run unopposed, which they automatically get reelected, or with the power of incumbency, we've seen it. We just saw it in the last election. They win by landslide, and so.
And unlike other offices where incumbents do exist, like for governor or state legislature or Congress, these guys, when they're judges, they get a little I next to their name as a hint to voters, and that immediately gives them an advantage over a new challenger. And as you said, many times these judges run unopposed to begin with, because the most likely people to run against them are people that would end up having to represent clients in cases before these same judges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's something that needs to be fixed here, because basically, instead of being the exception when something happens, when a judge passes away or something like that happens, which is rare, It's become the rule that this is how we get our judges. They're chosen by the governor of Oregon, and right now that's Kate Brown, the nation's least popular governor.
Mm-hmm.
But that should be a hint to everyone just why it matters who gets elected governor here, because you can't fix what's going on with this justice system, which is crumbling in this state. It's crumbling to its foundations thanks to the policies they've been put in place. You can't fix it if you can't actually do something about who's sitting in these judgeship seats. Our Constitution in Oregon intended for us to vote on who are our judges. That's not true at the federal level, but in Oregon at the state level, we're supposed to have the opportunity to vote on them, not have them decided and dictated by the governor. But if you want to start changing things as quickly as possible, elect a governor who will actually responsibly put judges on the bench.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't say it better, Kevin. Well said. It's we suffer from judges that have bad judgment.
That's a deep flaw for somebody whose title is judge. Bad judgment.
Yeah, and we've seen how important judges with good judgment are. I mean, a judge. I think we're looking at a Supreme Court of the United States right now that collectively probably exercises some pretty damn good judgment. I mean, we saw Roe v. Wade vacated or overturned, which it should have been. It was a bad decision. I think nobody will disagree on that. Take the abortion argument aside, it was just a bad judgment. It was an
legal decision, right? Yeah,
it was a bad legal decision. And so, man, if we can get people with good judgment into positions of being a judge, I think we can change some things.
Well, and I think people are also beginning to realize that there's something deeply wrong with our public safety system in general. And this today, when a poll from the Oregonian was put out that says it was asking people what they think of law enforcement, district attorneys, and the criminal justice system. And this is the top line result. Nearly 2/3 of likely Oregon voters believe the state's criminal justice system isn't tough enough. 2/3. I don't think we've seen 2/3 for anything. That at one time was probably much closer to 50-50 or the other way 4 years ago. How did you get to 2/3? You've done some amazing work at persuading voters that you're a screw up. Whoever's overseeing our criminal justice system, and there are still 6% who think that system is too tough. 6%. Funny, that's similar to that 6% of the time that Betsy didn't vote with Tina Kotek. So maybe we should coin the term the 6%ers. But the 12% say they were unsure, which there's always 12% scatterbrains in any poll, right? But
I'm busy. Get off phone.
That's right.
I don't know. I don't know.
What is the criminal justice system? I don't have time for this. Goodbye.
Undecided.
They now fully 70% of respondents said they felt very confident or somewhat confident about their local police departments and about the Oregon State Police, which is actually the police that were supposed to actually be under the direct supervision of the people, right? In this state, they're the ones closest to you. They're the ones that are in your communities. And these are the people that Joanne Hardesty, that Democrats making legislation in Salem said they're all racist and they're all guilty of white supremacy, which is they've said is our biggest problem. And that they should be the ones on trial, and that the criminals are victims. And apparently the people of Oregon deeply disagree with this point of view to the tune of 70%.
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, normal people don't think well of chaos and crime and generally all of the things that the Democrat agenda, both here in Oregon and other states and other cities, well, hell, other countries, think that it's necessary. It's necessary to usher in their their political utopia. chaos is good, crime is good. Criminals are victims. It's just upside down la la land to me. I don't get why there's anybody on the other side. I mean, you say 2/3, that leaves that leaves another third. I mean, are a third of the people criminals?
Well, here's something very interesting for you.
Are they no criminals? Or
part of the group that was saying that they did not have confidence in the police. Here's one of the guys that they interviewed for the article. His name's Bill Carter, 60-year-old Democrat from Southeast Portland. He says he lacks confidence in the Portland Police Bureau because officers don't come through for him when he stops shoplifters on the job. If he calls 911, officers likely won't arrive in time to do anything to help. This is that living in a media bubble. Apparently, he has not been informed that they're understaffed and therefore don't show up because they were defunded and then abused and handcuffed by their leaders, and a bunch of them left.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been stabbed in the back and kneecapped and defunded and villainized by their own people, by the police chief. I don't know, police chief, but isn't the mayor, the police commissioner or something? I mean, he directs the police department. I think it's on the level, and that guy, like me, like you, we expect just a modicum of service for the taxes that we pay. Like, hey, there's someone at my house trying to kill me. Can you come over and take care of them? We expect a cop to show up.
It's a reasonable expectation. He just wasn't told who made it impossible for enough cops to be around in the first place.
Yeah,
that's the media function, right?
Well, the media. Yeah, the media is not going to tell him that. I don't know how the media. It's really probably a defect on my part because I don't watch the media, so I don't take it in. I just catch it on occasion, so I don't know how they're presenting this stuff, and I really don't know how they're doing the stories about rising crime in Portland and not connecting it to the very people that they support, the media that is, and protect.
Past weekend there were I think it was 4 murders in 24 hours in Portland.
It
was pretty stunning. And after this happened, all the major gubernatorial candidates reacted to this. I think it speaks volumes. So Christine Drazan, tragedies like this are becoming far too common in our state's largest city. Politicians like my opponent, she's talking about Tina Kotek, because Bessie's not close to being a viable opponent. Politicians like my opponent have enabled the defund the police movement, made Oregonians less safe. It's time we take a stand for public safety. Here was Tina Kotek's response. This level of violence is unacceptable. As governor, I won't sit back as crimes rise in Portland. I will work with law enforcement and fight to get illegal guns off the streets. So apparently, first of all, she was sitting back for 10 years as a governor. She was, the only thing she could say she was proactive about was making it worse by passing laws that made it impossible for them to do anything about all the urban camping and the crime that resulted from that. Supporting Measure 110, which has unleashed the stratospheric rise in the use of hard drugs and all the crime that's come from that. And she says the level of violence is unacceptable. Doesn't say anything about criminals or getting them off the street. And then she says she'll work with local law enforcement, who she gave the middle finger to. Her own member of her staff as Speaker of the House got arrested as being part of a riot.
Yeah.
And then she says, and this is the best part, fight to get illegal guns off the streets. They don't prosecute people for crimes in Multnomah County anymore to such a degree that it doesn't matter if the guns are legal or illegal. And by the way, they're illegal for the most part because criminals don't follow laws, especially when they are doing meth in tents. And she's like making it sound like there's guns that suddenly have marched themselves down the street and started shooting people. Boom, 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 boom. All by themselves.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In her mind, It's the damn guns. I mean, you can have a city full of criminals, but man, if they have guns, if we just take the guns away from the criminals will be harmless.
Plus, let's pass a law because criminals will follow that law.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Follow this one because Tina is
Yeah.
going to work with
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's probably a good idea. I mean, all you have to do is just make it a crime to use a gun in a crime, and then it'll just stop happening.
Yeah, make it illegal to buy illegal guns. They should do that. Then it's like double illegal. Ooh, that'll stop them. Well, I thought we could wrap up here with one last item, which I thought it really caught my attention. It was excellent. It's well done. So there's something called the Republican State Leadership Committee. And what it does is it helps Republicans win at the state level and state legislative races all over the country. And they are in Oregon and supporting us big time. Why?
Really?
We're the poster child for what's been going on across the rest of the country. And people are absolutely livid about this. And as we saw from this polling, it's being reflected in the polling. And here's an ad that they did, which is fantastic. And I'm putting it in the feed here. And it shows, it calls it out. It says, enough is enough. If Democrats won't protect our communities, state Republicans will. This November, your safety is on the ballot. And it is a well done video. I recommend everybody watch it and share it. It actually shows not just Portland, although it leads with Portland in the ad, but then it pops around to all these other cities, Democrat-run cities, every single one of them, and talking about record thefts, record burglaries, record homicides, street racing, you name it. All this stuff, this Mad Max chaos that's been unleashed here in Portland in particular, and they show it and they tell everybody what it means at the ballot box. I recommend you watch it and share it with somebody because stuff like this that's really well done has a huge impact.
It does. Yeah. I've seen it. It's real good.
So that kind of wraps it here today. I think we gave people not only an idea of where the gubernatorial race is at and what is real and what isn't real, but also what people think in Oregon, according to polling, and how this is going to impact what happens here in November and what we can fix by changing who's running the state. We can fix these things. It's not beyond repair. We can change all of this. And the most important thing is everybody out there, you've got to vote. Don't just think a poll did it for you. Joanna Bernstein hasn't been kicked out of office yet, but she will be. But we got to get those ballots in. They really do matter. If there's an election where your vote matters, this is it right here.
Yeah. Well, look at it. If you look at it this way, I think most people that watch the show are probably Republicans. Maybe not everybody, but that's fine. But they're conservative people. So in a presidential year, which this is not, this is a midterm. In a presidential year, Republicans will turn out to vote around almost 90%. And this next month, 25% of Republicans will not vote. I mean, we generally see about 75% turnout. If we had the same kind of turnout that we do in a presidential year, if we were as excited about our own government and our own policy as we were about who lived in the White House, we would have a significant impact on Biden's future and the direction it's heading. We still may have a Republican.
Oh, you froze up. There you go.
Did I freeze?
Yeah, you froze for a second. You said we'll have a Republican, hopefully, in the governor's office, and then
and at the very least, that we will we'll get rid of the Democrat supermajority, and at the best, we might get a gavel in one or both houses, and we can really do some stuff to change. And it's all to your point, Kevin. We just need to vote. That's all there is to it.
And don't forget two to three more seats in the House of Representatives. That is something that 3 open seats we haven't seen in this state for Congress in decades. I don't know if they've ever had 3 open seats.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a great opportunity. I hope everyone that votes will take it upon themselves to make sure everyone that they know, their friends, family, co-workers, and neighbors vote as well, unless
And
they're Democrats.
Marjorie here, Marjorie Davis asked if that last thing can be shared on Facebook. You can share it. It'll still open it up to Twitter. It's the only way I can share it with you right now. If I find another way, I'll post it here, and maybe you'll get a notification. This is the RSLC video. But also, you're probably going to see this on TV here soon. So stay tuned. And thanks for staying tuned to us. We do hope that you can share this show with everyone possible. David, thank you for being on the show with me here tonight. Really appreciate it with all your wisdom.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone that showed up.
And we will be back tomorrow night with another episode of The Captive Audience with even more to tell you and more to share. There's stuff that we didn't get to tonight. Maybe we'll talk about that. And as usual, there will be a cajillion more stories that we'll talk about as well. It should be Don, and I don't know if Sonny's back or it'll be me or David. We'll figure it out. You'll see us. Don will be there, and we'll be happy to see you as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and we will we'll be back tomorrow with another episode of The Captive Audience. Good night.
Good night.